6:13 in the morning, Pacific time. Wherever you're chiming in, please help me out by pressing the thumbs up button, subscribing, sharing these videos, commenting, and dialoguing with other people on this channel in a respectful manner, though. Let's just not dialogue with just you and I back and forth, but with everybody. If you see a comment, maybe somebody has a question about something, help them out by answering, especially if you have your own YouTube channel. That's one of the ways that you can gain respect and you can gain a following. People find out that you're helpful. They see your comment and they might end up subscribing to your channel as well. When I say community, if just you and I dialogue, that's not a community. It's everybody. Okay, onward. Let's talk about the Officer Hare incident at San Diego PD, and I want to talk about how he could potentially get his job back. So, well, where do we even begin? So it appears Officer Hare of the San Diego Police Department was involved in a warrant arrest with two individuals, a man and a woman. And I think that they were a couple, don't know. Officer Hare took her into custody. She's the one that you see in all the footage that's wearing red, low-cut blouse that's red, and then like red shorts. He took her into custody. He gave her a ride, intending to go with the best of intentions to going to jail to book this prisoner. During the process, this lady asked the officer, "Are you single?" And then the officer says something to the effect like, "You're not." And then she basically asked him to have sex. Can I say that on camera? Anyhow, so, you know, instead of saying absolutely not or anything like that, or hey, this is not proper discussion, the camera shuts off, and his argument is it fell off. He's shown on GPS on pulling into a residential street that apparently has nothing to do with the jail. And he locked himself in the unit, and looks like his partners or a supervisor, opens the door, and he just jumps out looking super nervous, and then you have the female in there. His argument is that she was having a medical emergency and he had to dive in there to provide some type of rescue attempt. Apparently he did not notify EMS. He took it upon himself to provide medical attention. The female was interviewed later on, to which she said that there's no sexual intercourse, like nothing happened. Looks like she stuck to her story. This happened in November of 2023, and the body camera footage was recently just released. So I want to talk about how he could potentially get his job back. And I don't want anyone to think that this is a way that I'm supporting this officer. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I'm just explaining what many states have, and they kind of have what's called a POBR, a Peace Officer Bill of Rights. Obviously, every state's gonna vary. If you're a supervisor and you violate someone's POBR rights, they could potentially be reinstated in employment. So I want to talk about that. A lot of people are talking about the whole incident in general. There's a lot of clatter, a lot of about it, a lot of talk, but no one's really talking. Actually, nobody is really talking about the 3303 violations that can be made an issue. So let's begin with a disclaimer. So I'm located in the state of California. Because I'm located in California, my understanding of most of the laws pertain to California. However, other states have very similar government code sections and similar case law than as with California. Typically, almost in all cases, when the government takes away your property, some type of property, whether that be like actual land, personal property, you have a right to due process. It's well defined in many case laws that someone's job is considered property. So in government work, in exchange for you not getting these huge bonuses, in exchange for you not being able to have secondary employment upon the approval of the executive for your agency, with a lot of restrictions that you have these protections, these legal protections that protect you from just losing your job. In California, this refers to the 3303 sections of the California Government Code. Firefighters have a similar section. I think there's just 3304, but I'm not too positive. So there's basically a procedure that has to take place before the government can terminate you. I'm not going to talk about the entire internal affairs process, but I do want to talk about some 3303 violations that I think might be relevant to the situation. So the first violation that we see is, I think it's 3303A or B, I can't remember the specific section, that entails interrogations. An interrogation cannot begin unless it's a reasonable time and place. Typically, your street encounter, asking an officer on the street, interrogating him about a situation, that's usually not a reasonable place and hour. You're usually given like a conference room, an office, and you are given the right to talk to an attorney before you provide any type of incriminating statement. That apparently was not done. Based on the body camera footage, it was not done. Now, I guess the argument is the supervisor is just asking Officer Hare, like, what happened? That's not interrogation. Well, that's an argument that the city of San Diego has to bring, but Officer Hare's argument is, no, that was an interrogation. He's asking me about a matter that could potentially lead to discipline, and it could potentially lead to criminal charges. Okay? Before we proceed any further, let me just go through the comments real quick. Nima says, I remember when one of my coworkers locked himself in the backseat. What the hell? With the prostitute, and had to call the supervisor to come and lock the car for him. Never saw him again. Wow. Thank you for sharing that, though. I guess it's common other places. Wow. Give me a second, guys. Let me just drink some water. Okay. So, like I said, Officer Hare is going to argue that the questioning of what happened is an interrogation, and it was not done at a reasonable place, a reasonable hour. Typically, you do these types of interrogations some other places. There's something in law enforcement in California we call a public safety statement. If you're involved in some type of OIS, the supervisor can ask you, basically, how many shots did you fire? In what direction? And what is the suspect wearing, like his description, and which way did he flee? That's it. That's called your public safety statement. Basically, the supervisor needs to know what direction you fired because one of your rounds may have went through a wall and hit an innocent bystander. Also, that requirement is there because you might, like, your partners might need to look for this person that attacked you. So they need that information. Short of that, once again, there are rights that are given to peace officers all across the United States. Those types of rights that are given are kind of like the same rights that somebody who's arrested gets. Those who's been institutionalized know the whole procedure. It's basically a very similar procedure. Now, I saw some footage where Officer Hare is explaining the situation on how he locked himself in the car. He's wearing like some gym shorts, a t-shirt, and he's demonstrating how he got back there and he locked himself in. It is definitely an interesting and entertaining story, But in the end, look, that was recorded, guys. I think it was body camera. I think it's the 3303B section basically states that that an officer's photograph will not be released to the media. And basically what you have here is a motion picture. You have a video, which is basically thousands of or millions of photographs taken every millisecond or second. I mean, that's a video recording is technically photographs. So he would argue, hey, my photograph was disclosed to the public. That's a violation of my 3303 rights. If your argument is, hey, you know what, it's not still photograph, or it's not, I'm sorry, videos are not photographs. I'm sure that there's some case studies to back that up, which I don't have available. But for the most part, that's what video cameras do, is they just capture these photographs thousands of time. Could be wrong in that, but I'm not too positive. Anyhow, I think what kind of doesn't help out Officer Hare is that he resigned. You know, when you resign, there might be some rights that you're giving up, and it looks like he resigned within like a month after the incident. Could it have been a resignation in lieu of termination? Possibly. It's very possible. He saw that the evidence was overwhelming. Now, what doesn't work against him is apparently, according to San Diego PD, he gave an inconsistent statement. He was not being truthful during his interview with them. So if they don't have enough, and I could have sworn I read somewhere about a seminal stain on the belt. Again, that needs to be fact checked. His argument can easily be on that one, well, I was home with the girlfriend or the wife or somebody else while I had the duty belt on. I mean, it's laughable, right? But people come up with the dumbest excuses or the most interesting excuses ever. So I think if you want, he could push all these arguments. As for him resigning, he can easily say, hey, you know what? This illegally obtained evidence was so overwhelming, I had no choice but to resign. So what would happen if, let's just say, if the courts overturned the evidence because of the POBR violations? Well, they would have to investigate all over again, but not use those evidence. They could still get to that. They could still get to the point of time where they probably have enough evidence to terminate him. I just don't think that's going to be the case. Now, what is the end result for Officer Hare? He's going to most likely try to get into private security. Again, I don't know about his background. It's likely, maybe not. If this is a sustained internal affairs, it's very possible that his name will be recorded at the California Post website, where there's a list of officers who have been adjudicated as unfit for duty. I think right now there might be 50 or 100 throughout the last like 20 years or so. That's not actually a lot. He cannot work in the state of California anymore if he becomes part of that list, and he's going to have problems processing in any other state. So just to let you guys know what would happen to Officer Hare in that circumstance. All right, guys, so that's all I got. Give me 1 second. All right, guys. So if you guys have any questions, concerns, let me know. Once again, I'm not supporting what Officer Hare did. I'm just letting you know that there are potential 3303 violations. The whole showing the video footage with his face. Again, there's so many arguments. I guess the last argument that San Diego PD would be made is, hey, our internal affairs investigation is done, complete. Therefore, we're releasing it. That's another argument. There's so much back and forth legal arguments, but I just want you guys to understand that police officers all over the world need to do a better job at honoring the Peace Officer Bill of Rights, because what is going to end up happening is you have an officer that should be terminated but gets their job back because there was a sloppy affairs investigation. So that's my whole argument of this situation is, you know, let's think about what we're doing. You know, some people have criticized the supervisor for turning his body camera off. When he started questioning him some more, that's actually a good idea. So I don't know if he forgot to turn it off in the first place, but yeah, if you want the charges to stick, turn that body camera off. Because once again, you're recording evidence to show that you're conducting an investigation. That's not a reasonable place, and also a reasonable hour. It looks like the following morning, at the end of a shift, he was interviewed. I don't know for sure if that was the case, but if that's the case, that's not a reasonable hour, guys, at the end of your shift. The next day would be a reasonable hour. Maybe the following in that during that night, if even that. If I was San Diego PD, I would ask him. I would serve him with internal affairs paperwork, and then I would ask if we can record his explanation of how he got in the back of the car. Obviously, that person has a right to have an attorney present. All right, guys, that's all I got. I'm looking forward to your dialogue, commentary. I know that there's a lot of experience law enforcement here, and I'm wondering like what your take is on this. All right, guys.